I have said before that I believe that liberalism is a mental disorder. And one of the main reasons for that is the liberal tendency toward essentialism. So, Cliff Notes' version of essentialism, please no actual philosophers get on me for this. Seeing the essence of a person and attributing that back to their actions, or seeing people as essentially one thing or the other. So it's kind of the dividing line that liberals create, where I will say something like, all soldiers in the Canadian Armed Forces are criminals. And the responses I get, because I'm getting them from liberals, are things like, what, do you know them all? No, I don't. I know very many of them, but not all of them. Nor do I need to know any of them at all to make that statement, or for that statement to be accurate. Because there's nothing about a person's personality and personhood that determines whether or not they're a criminal. What determines whether or not they're a criminal is whether or not they're committing crimes. That's how it works. It has nothing to do with the ideas or the feelings. It has to do with the actions and the reality. Oh, so you're just saying that they're bad people? No, once again, I didn't comment on their personhood or their personality. I said they're criminals. I said that actions they committed amount to crimes. That's not a statement about their personality. Oh, look, these are hardworking family men. Okay, what? Do you think that criminals don't have families? Yeah, they're doing a job. They're just providing for their family. Once again, why do you think criminals commit crime? Do you think they're just doing it for fucking sport? No. They're doing a job to provide for their families. That's why people do crime, because crime pays handsomely. Yeah, but these people are working hard. What, do you think crime's easy? Nah, man, crime's difficult. Especially since you've got like entire police organizations and shit after you when you're doing crimes. So yeah, crimes are pretty hard. Criminals work very hard. Yeah, but like, no, they're good people. Uh-huh. Cool. I mean, depends how you define good person, because if you define good person as somebody that's not willing to criminally shoot people because they were told to, then no, they're not good people. But I would assume most of them are good people, just like most criminals of all sorts are good people in hard situations. Yeah, but they're just following instructions. Yeah, so were the Nazis. Are you gonna say the Nazis weren't criminals? Of course they were fucking criminals. They were the fucking Nazis. They're like the definition of crime. Yeah, yeah, but you're just, so what? So what would you propose? I would propose that because everything they're doing is illegal, and they're doing it in an organized fashion, that they're organized criminals as part of a criminal organization. That's what I would propose. But for liberals, that essentialism is just in there. Criminals are bad. Soldiers are good. Therefore, the soldiers can't be criminals, because then good equals bad, and that means up equals down, and now reality just doesn't exist anymore. And this is the type of thing that makes me say that liberalism is a mental disorder. I get that the idea is that you're bringing freedom. The reality is that you're bringing death. I get that the idea is that you're liberating people, but let's look at the reality of the situation. In Taliban-controlled territories in Afghanistan right now, women and girls are allowed to go to school. In the territories held by our allies in the Afghan government, they're not. So we actually revoked women and girls' right to go to school. Okay. The Taliban hasn't been reported to be killing civilians in a good damn long while. And it really depends on what you interpret as a civilian. Because I would say that a farmer standing in his farmhouse who just saw a bunch of foreign invaders show up, who's taking pot shots at them with an AK, is a civilian. Of course, we would kill him and then classify him as a terrorist, but really it comes down to what you interpret as a civilian, now doesn't it? And even then, the Taliban has not been reported to be killing civilians for a good goddamn long while. The only people they've been killing are the foreign militaries invading their country. Meanwhile, you've got rampant reports coming out of Afghanistan right now of people showing up at the madrasas in the night, being instructed by Americans and or Canadians, pulling children out of their beds, bringing them into a separate room, killing them all, and leaving. Just death squads hunting children at boarding schools. Boarding schools that are being run by the Taliban, interestingly enough. So the idea is that we're bringing freedom. The reality is that we have death squads sport hunting children at schools being run by the Taliban. Now, you tell me who's the criminal in that situation. Because if leading death squads to shoot 8-year-olds for, I guess, we can only assume being related to members of the Taliban, doesn't make you a criminal, I don't know what does. And if you interpret those actions as being the most heinous possible type of crime that any person could ever commit under any circumstances, anywhere, ever, as you should, then you really have to see anybody that is doing literally anything to assist with that crime as also being a criminal. Whether what you're doing is logistics, training, support, active combat, if you're feeding soldiers who are then going out at night to murder children at boarding schools for being related to the wrong people, then you, my kitchen working friend, are also a fucking criminal. Because that's just reality. Just cold, hard reality. But you can't say that, because then you're going to hurt the soldiers' feelings. And, you know, liberals, it's all about that middle ground. Don't hurt their feelings. Because feelings are really important. Because ideas reign supreme, divorced from reality. And, I mean, there's a million other places where that exact thing pops up. You know, if you want a mild, more palatable example to contemplate, one that's easier to think over because it doesn't involve dead children. In schools right now, you're not really allowed to let children refuse to play with another child, pretty much under any circumstances. So what you have right now are children who have made their entire educational career out of physically and verbally assaulting everyone around them. And all they have to do is show up and give the idea of an apology. Just show up, oh, I'm sorry. And you have to make the other kids play with them again. Because regardless of the reality of how they've been treating the other children, the idea is that they apologized. And so really what's happening is just systematic rampant child abuse, where children are being physically assaulted by other children and then being told that they're not allowed to hold themselves in a safer place and refuse to go back to the person that's been physically assaulting them. Because the idea is that that's going to be harmful to the child who's being harmful. The reality, of course, is that what you're doing is you're divorcing this kid from consequence and reality. So now this kid is growing up with the idea that they can just do infinite harm to anybody they want, and nobody is going to ever do anything about it. Nobody is ever going to be allowed to do anything about it. So if that guy becomes a soldier eventually, he's going to be the type to just like shoot people and not understand why they're shooting back. If they just become a jackass eventually, they're going to be the type to severely fuck with the cops, and in a bunch of places that leads to police murdering people. You're not setting people up for reality if you're raising them in a liberal bubble, because liberalism is a mental disorder.